Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Susie Barrett, and my guest today is none other than Rebecca Drysdale. Beck is one half of Beck Drysdale with Heather Campbell, which is the winningest cage match team in UCBLA history with a record of 78-0. And by the way, they now have a show at UCB that's every first Wednesday of the month at 7, paired with Convoy. What a great slot. If you haven't seen them, go. Beck's other credits are too many to name, but she's an alum of Second City and Boom Chicago. She's written for Key and Peele, and of course, she founded the Clubhouse, which is one of LA's indie improv hubs. If you've ever had Beck as an improv teacher, you know what a brilliant genius she is at improv theory. And if you haven't, you're in for a real treat. And this is just part 1, so if you like what you hear from Beck and you're not already a subscriber, head over to yesalso.supercast.com where an extra hour of this conversation awaits you. Okay, and now, Rebecca Drysdale. Beck Drysdale.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very flattered, truly, because I know you did a whole season.
There's
an
not
ongoing.
seasons, but
everything is in seasons, Susie.
And everything has its season,
and everything does.
Everything has its time. You were the one of the first 3 people I asked.
I know,
to do this,
and
like,
what
year
happened?
ago.
I couldn't do it for some stupid reason.
We had a scheduling conflict, and then I got back to you again, and then you never got back to me, and now we're on a.
Well, as long as it was my fault.
I didn't mean to sell you out like that.
No,
it was
fine.
like we were both busy.
Okay,
yeah,
got
yeah.
it.
It was an hour fault.
We live in LA, and that's the answer.
That's the answer. Where do you want to start? Some of these start with like the origin story of like how improv arrived in your life. Some people start with like something that they've been burning on their brains lately that they've been thinking about
Probably
improv.
not there. About improv.
Yeah.
I was like, let's not
improv.
start with what's burning on my brain because we won't get
that's
to improv.
brain herpes, and I don't want people to know I have it.
I don't. I mean, it's a responsibility to tell people, but I don't.
Do you want to start improv-y or origin-y? What's your hunch?
I'm happy to follow you. You've done this more than me. You know me. Where do
I know
wanna
you.
start?
Well, we've known each other since
have.
since you were 20 and I was barely 21.
Yes. You were my elder.
I was your elder, but you were my improv elder. Let's start there. So how you arrived in my life was...
Yeah, remind me, because you know me, I don't remember a fucking thing.
I know.
Can I swear?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, fuck yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah, you can. I landed in Chicago when I was 21 and just out of college, and you had been there for a year or 2 years. You left Sarah Lawrence at 19.
I did.
And you and Jordan were like, Jordan Peele, who at the time was like your sketch and writing and improv partner.
Yeah, and I hope he's doing good. I hope he's doing okay. I hope he's okay.
Haven't heard anything about him in like
some
20
people
years.
You just don't know what happened.
Lose track and but you guys had like taken the improv scene by storm in Chicago. So my first awareness of you was like
that we were a big deal.
Yes.
And that's so funny.
Yeah.
And also it wasn't even the improv scene. We did our show. We were like in level 1. So we were doing our 2-person, scripted show, and that was
a
kind
sketch
of
show
our
called Two White Guys. Yeah.
And so that was kind of what put us on the scene, and like we had no context for that, so we didn't know that was like new and bold and weird, or that we were doing like a 2-person sketch show at the IO, big theater out of the gate. But I had also done a summer of interning between my first and second year of Sarah Lawrence, working in the training center at Second City.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was also able to like just absorb and watch and immerse myself during that period too. So in my sophomore year, when I was at that point basically just writing stuff with Jordan, and all the school stuff kind of just went away, fell by the wayside. At the end of that year, I was like, I'm gonna go to Chicago, and like, do you want to like come? And it was as simple as Jordan being like, yeah, let me get some stuff. I mean, it was just like,
sure, let me pack a backpack.
I mean, truly.
Yeah.
Not even, I mean, it was Jordan. So he's like, let me just scoop up what's on my floor and we'll go. So we did. And I had to, you know my parents.
Yeah.
I had to put together like a junior year abroad in Chicago, and like present it to the school and have it approved, knowing very well that I was not going to go back to school, hoping that I wasn't going to back.
But this is what made it palatable as a sale to your parents.
Yes, it was this is an accredited, approved by the school academic program that I've designed for myself in Chicago. And then I went to Chicago, and that was, what they thought I was doing. I guess I can't imagine more than 2 weeks, they thought that that's what I was doing. But Sarah Lawrence also thought I was coming back. And the next year, in like April, I think they like sent a letter and was like, are you coming back? So no, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I loved Sarah Lawrence. I loved every second of it, but I was just like, I know what I want to do. I'm done. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've had that comedy drive since you were young. Like, I remember hearing about you doing stand-up when you were 10 or something.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And that really helped me in a lot of ways, and it really hurt me in a lot of ways. I think, and now I'm just like, wait, where did that drive go? It has been sucked away by Hollywood, I think, from me. Like that feeling of just like
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, just like everything is like a Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland montage where you're gonna put on a show, which is what very much made Two White Guys happen. It was like, well, we're gonna go and we're gonna blow everyone's top,
and you did,
and we did.
Yeah.
And I wish it's one of the few things from that age that I wish I could go back and reinsert into myself. But not in those words.
You want to fist yourself with it.
I want to fist myself with my 20-year-old ambition and drive and bright-eyed, bushy-tailedness and lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And data. Because, man, not knowing things and being 20 and just being like, we're just going to do it is an amazing time.
It's a gift.
It's such a gift.
Yeah.
Even if you're broke. Remember that time I worked at every store on Broadway and Belmont and got fired from all of them?
You lasted like a month in each one.
I got fired there was like this strip of stores. I worked in every single one and just got fired from one and worked at the next
custom T-shirt lettering
that
place,
man.
Was there
custom T-shirt lettering place, a gay greeting card store. And they all hated me so much.
Why?
Well, the gay greeting card store guy hated me because I was lesbian. And the lesbians who worked at the custom T-shirt place hated me because I was 20.
Uh-huh.
And one of the women who worked there was an ex-police officer named Pam, which was like, really?
Too on the nose.
So on the nose.
Just let's
do some writing.
Yeah, take a character class and let's just not
make some choices.
Yeah,
this was like the
The other one was a bus driver named Colleen. Yeah.
You know those that and you know this more than anyone. That sort of like weird section of the Venn diagram that's like, I don't know if you're a lesbian or just like a Midwestern 50-year-old.
Yep.
And you're wearing the same
My
clothes
mom,
and has the same.
who might be both. But
yeah, the same haircut.
Yeah.
So that store, they were both.
Yeah.
And I remember there was like some big kerfuffle about, I was like, I'm going to bring in, is it okay if I bring in some music? And me at that time, to me, bring in music meant like my Mercury Jazz box set of female jazz greats singing standards.
Right.
But they looked at me and they were like, what's this going to be? And so Pam was like, actually, we're not allowed to play. We can play the radio, but we're not licensed to play.
We're not licensed. Like you
right,
owe the artist a kickback.
They don't play music in restaurants and bars and whatever.
Yeah, and you owe a royalty to Billie Holiday's estate for the 2 customers that came into the T-shirt shop.
They were trying to stop me from coming in and playing
whatever, Kesha,
whatever.
That wasn't even a thing.
Not
at the
even
time.
a thing. And also, like, my taste in music at the time, I was like, no, I'm talking about like jazz standards.
Yeah. Let me explain. I'm basically 80.
Yeah,
I'm
older than you.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear your music.
Yeah.
So what they did was they would just have the radio on all the time. And this was like, very early aughts, if not 2000, whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was just like Enrique Iglesias. It was like what they played at that Northern Cafe, whatever that place was. That was just
Broadway Cafe, right?
whatever
no,
it was.
North Broadway Cafe. I don't remember.
And they just played hold music.
Yeah.
But this was during a period where I was doing Atkins. And so I just ate omelets every day.
Yeah.
And we went and ate omelets and listened to elevator music.
Yeah. We would eat like a giant rolled up egg and have like baggies of like salami and mustard in our pockets. What a time.
Yeah. And then we would go play Empire Earth for 10 hours.
For 10 hours at a
Still the
stretch.
best of those games
Yes.
that has ever happened. We're never talking about it.
No, we can't.
Which is honestly a good lesson. Like, do other shit.
Yeah. Do other shit.
Play some games. Eat some omelets.
So let's just kind of like give a broad overview of your kind of the
improv journey.
The bullet points of your journey.
Okay.
Chicago, Harold team in Chicago.
So before that, I'm going to go before that, if that's okay.
Back it up. Also, I want to say, I mentioned you doing stand-up when you were like 10.
Oh, yeah.
I still remember you told me one of the jokes that you used to do.
Good,
and I think
I don't remember anything I've ever
brilliant
said.
Joke.
You and Nicole Parker are in charge of
We're the
remembering
keepers.
everything I've ever said.
We are your Akashic records.
Yeah. Yes. And like Jesse's in charge of, is this too scary for me to watch?
Uh-huh.
And there's just, thank God, I have this
You've
support
outsourced.
system. I'm like, am I allowed to
No.
do this?
But when you were
yeah,
a
please
kid,
tell me, because I have no idea.
this joke. My mom is so anal retentive that she alphabetizes my SpaghettiOs.
Yeah.
So good.
I had it.
Yeah,
I had
you
it.
had it.
I would say
What
still
happened?
I was going to say, I would say still got it, but I don't know if that's true.
You do. You got it.
Yeah, I was when I was really little. When I was young, I really wanted to do stand up. I had, when I was like 15 and 16 and everyone else was learning how to like dry hump and smoke weed, I was like cataloging stand up from the 80s. And this was during that period of like the 80s women like who broke down the ceiling, the Joy Behars.
Which
and
I jokingly refer to as Women's Glib.
Well, we were going to do our show Women's Glib,
Yeah.
which I think we still should.
Right.
But yeah, it was like early Ellen,
Right.
before
Judy
the craziness. Judy Gold still killing it.
Classic. Carol Leifer. Elaine Boozler.
Wendy Liebman, who I'm friends with now on Facebook, and it makes me feel like the coolest person in the world. And Wendy Liebman does this thing now where she'll be like, every day she'll do a joke prompt that's like a setup, and then like 300 people do the punchline. It's so fun.
It's like the
and
New Yorker cartoon caption thing.
Yes, and it's also like I try really hard to like do the Wendy Liebman joke.
Oh, funny.
The under the breath extra word that makes it a joke. So it's a fun little
Is there a recent one
teaser.
that you remember?
Of course not.
Of course not, yeah.
And they're every day. So, but it's like a little like wordle for jokesters.
A jurdle.
It's a jurdle. It's a girdle.
It's a commertle.
Yeah.
But
that makes me feel very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had VHS tapes, and on the VHS tapes were stickers, and on the stickers were timestamps for like each joke. I was like, this is Rita Bredner's joke about Central Park. This is Ellen's joke about penguins, which is a great joke.
Great joke.
Such a great joke.
One of my all-time favorite stand-up
All
jokes.
of her bird work is amazing.
Because the
Eagles
Eagles
thing,
meeting,
come
great,
on.
yeah.
Early Ellen, man, you
cannot touch it. But is the penguin joke? I think it's in Taste This, yeah.
I think so. Yeah, the Sandra.
Yeah. So the joke is they say that penguins mate for life, but I don't know how they know.
Yeah, how they tell.
Yeah, like because it's like if you're a penguin, you imagine it's like, hey Sandra, look at Dave. Is that me he's with?
Yeah, early Ellen before the craziness. I mean, it doesn't get much better. And then Paula Poundstone, who I was obsessed with. I just the person that I'm seeing now, who is not in comedy and knows and is like not a bitster, and it's like I had like a whole crisis about it. But they are a huge stand-up fan.
Oh, cool.
But like new stuff. So I was like, oh, let's watch Cats, Cops, and Stuff, which I haven't seen since I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
And man, that Paula Poundstone,
Boy,
she's a Pete.
she's one to watch.
Keep an eye out
She
for
is-
Paula Poundstone,
yeah.
man. Because it's just those women who did the material that was about kind of nothing.
Yeah.
That were just the best because you can isolate, like, oh, that's just a joke structure and
something that all of them just when you watch, especially like back to back to back, like their like clips
Yeah.
and stuff, they all carved out completely unique
I know
styles and
Totally.
paths, even though they were all in this rubric of I'm a woman in the 80s.
Yes, and these
So
are
it's
my
like,
shoulder pads
these
and
are
my
my
tie.
fucking, you can't take your eyes off my sideburns, not for a second.
No. Well, and Paula Poundstone is just like an alien.
Yes.
Like from elsewhere.
Yes.
Like sexuality wise, gender wise,
Species
clothing
wise.
wise. It's just like you are from another place.
Yeah, she's in a time
But
traveler
so I was
minimum.
super nerdy about all that stuff. I really wanted to do. I really immersed myself in stand up, and then as I was kind of like explored comedy more and got more dorky about it. And this is when I lived in Montreal. I was like 16. I would go to Café Encore une fois. And
Do not speak like that to me. You watch your mouth.
I would chain smoke de Mauriers and I would write stand up when I was
Wow.
like 16. Like what? Super cool. Anyway, the boys were lining up. And I'd unicycle home.
And one of those boys was you.
I know I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
But as I explored more and realized that, like, oh, wait a minute, actually the things that I'm like super drawn to are, you know, more sort of sketch improv, you know, the Gilda Radners and the Catherine O'Hara's and the SCTV and stuff like that, and Christopher Guest and things like that. I was like, this isn't stand up. Where does this come from?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, the answer was Second City.
Right.
So I was like, let's fucking go. We got to go. And so I was, when I was like 17 or something, we did a theater trip up from my school. I grew up in Montreal, and we did a theater trip to like around the Midwest. And one of the places we did our show was in Evanston. And I had a lot of friends who were going to Northwestern at that time. So I met up with my friend Dave Iserson, shout out. And we went to Second City. I snuck out of the like host family that I was staying with, and I went to Second City because I was like, I'm not trying to be in Evanston and not go to Second City when I'm here for the first time.
Also, the through line of like that your rebellion.
I know was
it was
going
like
to the theater.
Yes, it's so cute.
I know, it is.
There I was like like smoking cigarettes to write stand-up jokes, and I quit
It's so
school
true.
to
It's
go
so true.
learn comedy in Chicago, where all my heroes went.
Well, and like in Montreal, you can go drinking when you're like 15. And for me at the time, it was like, oh, this is so great because I can go and like get a glass of wine and write.
I can get so many jokes accomplished.
I can go see stand up. I can get into clubs and like see shows.
Yeah.
I can go dance to my favorite Motown band.
Right.
No, I would go to Charlie Biddle's, which was a jazz club in Montreal. I would order the brownie, which was delicious. Huge brownie. And
a literal brownie.
A literal
I pictured
brownie.
it like a
whiskey
a double
drink?
whiskey
Hell
with
no.
a whiskey
No,
rim.
I had a brownie and a glass of milk. And I listened to Charlie Biddle on the fiddle, and I wrote comedy. I was
Wow.
obsessed. I was the more dedicated then than ever. And I was, yeah, that drive I definitely need back. It's amazing how Hollywood and the business can just rip that out of you. But yeah, super nerdy. And then I started, so I went to Second City. I got in so much trouble for sneaking out. And they were like, we're going to have to tell your parents about this. And I was like, if you want to tell my parents that I snuck out on a theater trip to go see theater, go for it.
I did extra credit.
Yeah,
I
like-
did the trip too hard.
Yeah, I did it too well.
Yeah.
And I also was like, I knew that I was going to be there someday. So I was like, I had to.
Yeah.
This was like recon. I had to go.
I had to go to a fitting so that they have time to like
Yeah,
size me
exactly.
for my character shoes.
And the show that I saw on that when I snuck out, my big rebellion, my Rumspringa, was oh my God, Promise Keepers, Losers, Weepers. It was Scott Adsit, Dratch. I think Tina was still there.
Kevin
Dorff. This was the show with like Grandma's Records. I love talking about Second City in LA, where it's like everyone's like 9 and they have no idea what I'm talking about. But this was like,
when you say Grandma's Records, describe the sketch.
So the sketch was a bunch of priests and nuns, and I guess the pastor had died, and so they were preparing for the service for this pastor, and they were going through all of his old stuff, and they find like a cardboard box of old records of like 78s from like the teens and 30s, and they're like, oh, we should play, you know, one of his old favorite records.
Oh, just
you know,
as an
whatever.
homage, yeah.
And so they start putting on these records, and a lot of those records, very famously, were very dirty. And so every record they put on is a very, very filthy, you know, sexy, innuendo-y record. And the way they did it was that on the very side of the stage, I think initially it was Tina Dorff and Adsit. I might be wrong about that.
Being the band,
being
the
the record,
yeah.
And one of them had a ukulele, and one of them had a megaphone, and one of them had a piece of like a lighting gel. And so the lighting gel was the like was the
brilliant.
crinkle of the record, and the megaphone made the kind of old timey voice, and the other person
ding ding
was
ding
playing
ding
on the
ding ding on the ukulele, yeah.
And so it was like the song. I was washing dishes in my house the other day. Like once in a while, some old Second City thing will fly into my head, and I'll just stop whatever I'm doing and be like, that is so dumb and so good. And oh my God. And the thing that came into my head the other day was like, I go walking with my gal. Her name was Sally Clasterbait. And every time, and then they just take the thing off the record. So the game was like heightening how obvious the dirtiness was going to be. And you know, Dratch played a nun, and like and Adsit was you know, kind of the priest or preacher. I'm Jewish. I don't know what I'm talking about. The priester, the pope, whatever the preachster.
The preachster.
And it's just a very classic scene. It toured a lot. You know, it was always sort of like an honor to get to do Grandma's Records. But what, you know, and then I came back to Second City, and then when Jordan and I went, we both got jobs there as a host, meaning we like set up the chairs, or we worked in the kitchen, or we cleaned up vomit when that happened. Lowest possible job on the totem pole. But what I got to do was watch them every fucking night, and not only do the show, but the improv set every fucking night. And it's like, that was such an unbelievable textbook for me, especially because those people in particular were so brilliant.
Yes.
You know, Steph Weir and Dorff, and like eventually then like TJ was up there for a minute before Tallarico, Tammy. And then on ETC was like Craig Kakowski. The old timers call him Kaki. You know, on ETC was Kaki, Horatio, Jack McBrayer, Matt Dwyer, you know, I don't think there were women.
Jean Villepeak at the time?
That was a little later, but yes, that was, Jean was up there with like Keegan and Sam Albert and stuff like that. That was a little later, but
we're deep in the weeds.
Everyone's like already signed off. But these are the people who taught the people who taught the people that you think are amazing. So pay attention. And then Sue Messing went up there eventually. So that was such an unbelievable textbook that I don't think there's an equivalent to, you know.
Every night watching the best people, the most naturally talented comedians and performers, and also the people who are at the top of their craft, watching them do the same sketches every night, and then an improv set every night.
And then watching them fold the show over into the new show.
Right, so which is where they slowly add in new material to try out.
Slowly added new material, try it out a couple of different ways, a couple different times as they're shifting new material into the old show, which means, and then when I was working at Second City and doing shows, it's sort of like you have to rebuild the show every single day, because it's like, okay, we're going to put this sketch in, which means we have to completely redo the running order, all the transitions, T's and B's, we called them.
Tops and bottoms.
Tops and bottoms, all the chair sets. Like chair sets at Second City was like this, very choreographed
meaning
thing.
One sketch ends and within
and the lights go down.
And the lights go down and within like 6.5 seconds, all of the chairs are seamlessly moved, not just like dragged around and clunked into the new place.
Yeah.
But each person has this choreographed, like, I'm going to step 2 steps here and I turn and it's like
thing,
watching a
and
machine.
Yes, and then I'm going to put this this prop goes over here because it's on my way off stage.
I hand my hat to you. You hand it to the person off stage. You grab this table, and boom, we're sitting on a first date.
Right.
And we're starting the scene with a laugh as lights up.
So that the blackouts are 5 seconds long and not 10 minutes long.
Have you seen a show at the Groundlings? I've brought this up before on this, but the difference, it's like there'll be like 4-minute. I'm not kidding. And it's just like a drummer playing, and it just over and over and over, and you're watching people set something on stage and then they forgot something, so they run off stage, and then they grab the tablecloth for the table, and then real glasses, and then silverware, and then they're changing their socks, and it's like, why can't we use our imagination for some of this? And the show doesn't need to be 4 hours long.
There were things that were transitions that they did with the lights on.
Yes.
Do you remember that, like, Tellerico, like, sweatshirt switch thing?
It sounds
That's
vaguely
about as
familiar.
Much as I remember. But it was basically, like, Tellerico was wearing a sweatshirt in one scene, and then he grabbed hands with, I can't remember who it was. Someone else came and pulled the sweatshirt off of him onto the other person's arms and onto them, and then on the inside of the sweatshirt was a different thing. So it's like, make this part of the show.
Yes. I want to pause here to talk about this because I want to make sure we're like injecting actual lessons into this. Yeah. Like a great takeaway for anyone doing sketch or any type of comedy, like the everything in the show from the start, from people walking in the door to them leaving, is part of the show.
Yeah.
So if you don't protect your comedy by having like just like sloppy, in betweens, people are frustrated, they're annoyed, or it doesn't look clean, or it looks like you don't care.
Also now during a time of cell phones, it's like, how long do you have before people take up their phones and start checking shit? Like blackouts need to be like a second long.
Yeah.
And I think that shows up a lot in like one person shows, and I mean any sketch shows now, because I think you and I have the benefit in our old age of seeing professionally done sketch shows, and people don't have that anymore, really.
Let's in this pause, let's start talking improv.
Yeah, please. Guide me, because you know me. I'll just go off about whatever.
I got you. I got your back.
Thank you.
At this time when you were like taking improv classes and learning the Herald and stuff, how did your comedy insert itself into that, or fist, or what? However, how did you gently finger your voice into?
There's my confidence as a writer was always much more developed than my confidence as an improviser. And Jordan and I came to Chicago. We started doing our show. We became like the new kids on the block. My improv was, I was in level 1. I was like, playing warm-up games and stuff. And
were you intimidated? Were you nervous?
Oh my God. I would go home and cry. I would watch Stephanie Weir on stage, and I would go home and I would have a nervous breakdown. I'd be like,
you were like, I'm not that. And
I was like, I don't understand. Like the way that I framed it for myself, and I don't know why I framed it this way, was like, that to me is like throwing a bus. And like, I can't throw a bus. Like I cannot see a path from where I am improv wise to that. I still can't. But
you are that. You're just your own version of that. You're just throwing a different bus, but like
it's a short bus.
Or you throw it in.
I'm throwing a what are they called? Micro Machines bus. But it was like this thing of like, I simply can't do that, and I never will be able to, and it hurt me. But
I think people are going to find that so inspiring, because you are such the beacon for so many people,
which
of
is
like
insane
the
to me
that they're
to
aiming towards.
Even here, because I don't feel that at all. But Well, one thing I will say, and something I say when I teach, is like, I sucked so hard for so long. And it's, as a teacher anyway, I think my greatest asset. It's like, I know what it feels like to blow for a very long time. And when I started to get better was when I had the opportunity, when I moved to New York and I was invited to do this show with all these like Chicago fucking greats. And suddenly I'm playing every week with Gaussis and Scott Adsit and, these people who I came up admiring and watching and couldn't even believe I was on stage. That's when I got good because I knew that even if I ate shit, they had me.
Yeah.
Because they're so good that they'll make me look like a genius anyway. So it was that sort of trust and faith that got me to a place where I had trust and faith in myself.
Let's analyze that. Was that process like, now that half of your brain isn't like spent using its bandwidth, like being terrified that the scene's going to go wrong. Yeah. You can relax because they have the bulk of the rowing. And now on the boat, you can kind of get used to how to hold the oars and how to, you can get,
And, now I feel like my greatest weakness as an improviser is that I feel like I'm only as good as the people I'm on stage with. Whereas someone like Scott Adsit, he does shows all the time where he's like, I'm just going to pull up a plate of cheese from the audience and make the plate of cheese look like a genius. Like I would love to get to that.
Start going to jams.
And I've done some of it, but it's like, I think that my sort of like the best I ever have been was, probably, I don't know, 10 years ago. Right now I just don't get to play very much, and so I don't have a lot of momentum, and I feel very I feel like that half that you're talking about, that half that's thinking about improv, is like sneaking back in.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in this sort of flow state of getting to play all the time. But man alive, was it like it's like a Matrix red pill situation where you just kind of suddenly can bend the spoon, and like it really is like anything else. This is something I talk about all the time. It's like, if you're going to play the piano or you're going to learn the violin or whatever, you have the sort of 10,000 hours and the expectation that you're just going to suck for a while, but with a violin, you can squeak away in the privacy of your own basement.
I talk about this all the time.
Yeah,
I've talked about it here. Magicians, too, they get to not be able to hide the coin for a year in their bedroom in front of a mirror before they finally go, here's my trick.
Exactly.
And we
with
have to
improv,
do it in front
you
of
have
people.
to squeak away and show your coin instantly.
Yeah.
To get your reps.
Yeah.
There's no way to practice in the privacy of your own bedroom. So the suckery that has to happen on stage is super important and really necessary, which is one of the big reasons the Clubhouse exists.
Yes.
And because so many of the other places, you kind of feel like you're always in some state of audition, whether it's socially or talent-wise or, skill-wise or whatever. There's always this sense of like, all of this is going to, decide whether I move forward or get on a team or whatever.
And you have that, the perception of an external eye that's watching you. The eye of Saruman is like judging whether you're going to get cut from your team or put on a team or whatever.
And, what was nice about, now there are other paths besides the Chicago path,
Yeah.
Before it was like, that's where you went. And now you can kind of skip that stuff and go to New York or come here or whatever.
Or stay where you are and take classes online and get good on. Yeah.
But at the time, it was like Chicago was the way there. And Second City was specifically the way to wherever the hell you wanted to go next, or supposedly. But the thing about Chicago is there's no industry there. And so really what you wanted was like, God, I want to get on a touring company. God, I want to get on one of those stages. But it wasn't like, God, I want to get on one of those stages so that I can then do something else. Like, we would cry and freak out about just getting to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than it being a stepping stone to somewhere else. There was this, kind of vague connection to Saturday Night Live. There was this kind of like vague connection to like, there might be a way to do this for a living. But like, we were obsessed with
Just
Green Co.
Yeah.
Like we just wanted to get to do it more. But anyway, back to me sucking.
Well, two things.
Okay.
I'll put a bookmark in what I was just going to say.
Okay.
I remember during that phase or just after it was when you were doing like a 2-person with Christina Gaussis, like out of that New York time.
Right.
And I remember you telling me, and you were like in your 30s at this point, and you were like, I wasn't improvising before, and finally this is the first time in my life I'm improvising.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind because I had watched you for years be one of the best improvisers I knew, both in long form at IO and Second City, but also or not second, but like at IO, and then in short form at Boom.
God,
and
that's so funny.
And it just blew my mind, and I asked what you meant, and you said, before I was just writing very fast.
Yes.
You were like,
sure.
I was the whole show, I was writing fast, but being a fast writer on stage is not the same as improv.
Well, because when we were coming up, like I remember when Jordan and I, we lived like 3 blocks away from IO, right next to that, the best burrito place in the world.
Under the
Taco
Addison
Burrito Express.
L. Yeah.
Come on.
The best.
So
TBX.
Unbelievable. So we were really close to IO. We went every fucking day.
Yeah.
We went every night. And one of the people we saw all the time was Craig Kukowski. And we decided, like, here's what Craig does. Craig Kukowski will start a scene, and then at some point in the scene, he'll freeze time. He'll go do research on whatever he's doing research on. He'll come back to the stage. He'll resume time and then dole out this like encyclopedic knowledge of whatever the hell he's talking about. And yeah, I think it's that distinction, especially because we were writing. It was like, oh, this is a different sport. This isn't about learning how to be fast. If anything, it's about learning how to slow down.
Yeah.
And what writing does when you're writing in your head and you're in an improv scene, it means you're not listening. So you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. And so letting go of I think it was the letting go of the writing that was the hardest thing. And once I did, and I was able to just listen and play, then I started getting better.
And where did the little part of you that's like aware of the scene being funny and wanting it to be comedy, did that go away because you just trusted like, well, I'm funny and it'll just be funny naturally? Or
I think it's that, closing the gap between like what you understand is going on stage and what you can actually do on stage. Like, there's a period where you are watching improv and you're like, I can see the dripping green matrix of everything they're doing. And I don't know why I'm so matrixy today.
I love it.
I love it. Great movie.
Have you seen it?
Keep your eye out for The Matrix. Where you start to be able to see the moves and you see the playbook and you can see the invisible strings, and you're like, I get it. I get it so hard. And then I get on this 6-inch platform and I'm a dum-dum.
Yeah.
And like, I know that I'm smarter than this. I know that I'm funnier than this. I know when we're hanging out and just chilling and doing bits, I'm a goddamn genius. And then I get on this stage and I'm like, hello, Dr. Lewis.
I'm glad that because my grandma referred me because you are neighbors and
it's like just laborious.
Yeah.
And it looks laborious.
Yeah.
And it's just horrible to do. It feels bad. It looks bad.
Laborious.
It's laborious. And so there was a period that started to go away, and at some point I started forgetting everything I did in an improv show. I have no recollection of what I did, and that's when I knew that I was actually present and not thinking and just playing and really listening and having fun.
Yeah.
But it took so long.
Yeah.
And I just wish, this is why I make it a point when I teach to like start with this conversation, because I feel like people are like, I've been doing this for a year and I'm not the best improviser in the world. And I'm always like, well, it sounds like it's because you've been doing it for a year.
Yeah.
And there are some people, and we've both seen them, who like take 3 classes and they're amazing and they just have it.
Right.
You know,
Beardsley was like
yeah,
that.
Beardsley.
You just watch these prodigies come in.
Mary Holland, you know,
Yeah.
just people who just out of the box are just like incredible.
Yeah.
I was not one of those people by
same.
any means, and it was painful, and it really hurt, and made me, you know, like, I mean, coming off of stage, I'm sure everyone can relate to this, coming off stage and apologizing to the rest of I still do it. It's obnoxious. This is why I don't get asked, because I have this problem where I'm like, I'm so sorry about whatever I just did on stage that was in any way horrible for you.
You used to do that after PDQ shows.
Horrible.
And this is like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was great. Did
I
you
know.
hear everyone cheering and laughing? It was great. We had so much fun.
I know. And I'm still just like, I can put myself away if you need me to for the crimes that I've just committed against this audience. And against my fellow improvisers.
Would you describe that as a type of imposter syndrome? I'm not good enough to describe imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it would be out of my league to really speak about that. No, I think it's, I want to be better.
Yeah.
And I think there's, you know, I have found it very difficult since I moved to LA because I haven't totally figured out how to like play the amount I want to play and play with the people that I want to play with. And so I really do feel like I'm very rusty and very out of practice. And so when I'm doing a show a month, I feel very like, it's like halfway through the show that I feel like, oh, right, improv.
Yeah.
And so it's more of an out of practice thing. I feel like I'm not as good as I was 10 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was. But, you know, the coming off and apologizing thing is just, it's obnoxious. It's like, it's like, I don't like doing it. I just feel kind of like, it's sort of like, hey, I'm sorry that I'm not as like in the zone.
Because you know internally that there's a version of you that
that's
you
better.
can that's better, that you can compare yourself to.
That I'm not playing at my best.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I know that feeling. And if people are like, no, it was great. It's like, no, I know that it felt like I've had that like with significant others or like in the quiet of a, you know, like, or like my mom will come to a show and it's like to her, I can be like, it wasn't the best. And she's like, it was great. I'm like, no, but for me, like, I know that it can be bad. I was distracted. I wasn't making choices. I wasn't having fun.
I think it's because I'm not playing the way I'm not playing to the level that I aspire to play at, or that I have played at in the past, or that I, you know, I just know is possible.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that what you said before, when you're like, so, you know, to so many people, you're the thing. Yeah. And I'm like, well, then they are not watching the right people. You know, like,
I mean, I've been watching your Beck Drysdale shows lately because we were paired together with Sentimental Lady.
Right. Yeah.
And I watched like 3 in a row these last few months, and all of them were like some of the best shows I've seen in a year. And
that is, to me, an example of I'm only as good as the people I'm playing with.
Okay, but the same could be said about her. It's like, both of you. It none of those shows feel like she is carrying you, you know. I want to pause here for a second because we take listener questions now.
Oh, there's listener questions?
There are. So we have a subscription at yesalso.supercast.com, and subscribers get to know, they become our close friends on Instagram. We let them know the guests ahead of time, and then they can ask you questions.
Are there actually questions?
Yeah.
I'm amazed.
Yeah, there's 4 questions for you, but 2 of them are the same, so we'll lump them together.
Rock Passover style.
Yeah.
We're going to have a glass of wine after each of these questions.
Yes. Yep.
I mean,
and a brownie.
We're dealing with the plagues. We might as well.
Might as well
lean in.
Okay. From CJ. One of the things I love so much about your improv is that it's so smart without feeling pretentious or precious. Oh, your little Muppet flattered face.
Cry.
And you seem to still really embrace the simple, dumb, and fun side of improv at the same time. Now I'm going to cry watching you listen to this. Do you think about that balance at all? Was that a part of your voice you had to find, or did it come naturally?
Can you repeat it? Not only for my own ego, but so that I can hear the question.
One of the things I love so much about your improv, it's so smart without feeling pretentious or precious. You seem to still really embrace the simple, dumb, and fun side at the same time. Do you think about that balance? Was that a part of your voice you had to find, or did it come naturally?
Thank you, CJ. First of all, that's very kind. And no, I don't think about it. I think that I naturally find, I really, really love, whether it's written or improvised or whatever, I love people who know when it's time, when it's dumb time.
Yeah.
Like the smartest shit in the world smacked right up against the dumbest, are you joking shit, which is why I love, the Christopher Guest stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's the mastery of like, time for something real dumb.
Yeah.
Against the smartest thing you've ever heard.
And a huge influence of yours was Muppets and Sesame Street. That's something we have in common. Yeah.
We can talk about that
I would love to,
because they're massive, massive influence both on the improv and writing side.
Well, and something that I think gets baked into your casserole is like the Muppet style is dumb stuff hiding the vegetable of smart.
Oh my God, Captain Vegetable.
All of that stuff is so smart,
it's so
but
smart.
in a silly disguise.
Well, and it's also, a love letter to real vaudeville. And it's it was 30 Rock before 30 Rock was 30 Rock.
Yeah, let's make a show.
It's behind the scenes at a vaudeville theater. And Kermit is running a theater. I relate a lot to Kermit.
And
more
Kermit
and more.
is Liz Lemon.
Yeah.
Exasperated at these like goofs that are
at the role he put himself in.
Right.
Like when people talk, like I'm not an astrology person, but I can tell you a million things about yourself based on who your favorite Muppet is or who the Muppet you relate to. And if it's a really thought out answer,
right?
And to me, I am very Kermity because I put myself in these positions where I have to be in charge, and then I turn around and be like, I never said I wanted to be in charge. Like every Muppet movie is everyone being like, Kermit, what do we do?
I don't know.
Yeah, like why are you asking me? I didn't want to do this, and it's like, no, it's in the first scene you were like, let's go to Broadway.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
And now I relate way more to Miss Piggy, oddly, but
why?
Because I having worked in Hollywood, I've just become the raging man-hating lesbian that everyone thought I was in the first place. Because I've worked with the worst Dabney Coleman motherfuckers out there.
Now you open every development meeting with a flying karate kick.
100%. 100%. Yeah, every development meeting.
I'm so sorry. Wrong room. 2B. Got it. Okay, different floor. Yes.
I love. Well, Miss Piggy's a fucking, feminist icon. Anyway, also a man's arm.
Yeah.
Watching anything Kermit and Piggy or anything Fozzie and Kermit, there's two guys under there improvising
Isn't that
together.
Nuts? Yeah.
One of my favorite, I will often, when I teach, make people watch Bert and Ernie sketches.
Oh, yes.
And
you want to talk about the cookie sketch?
Yes.
Yes, please. I love this so much.
So Bert and Ernie, like the general format for the sketches is that Ernie's done something, Ernie's been up to no good. Bert comes in and it's always like cherries or cookies or Twizzlers or whatever it is. And Bert and Ernie has taken one, and Bert is not happy about it. I mean, it's like the most classic straight man. Yeah, it's Abbott and Costello,
and it's the Odd Couple because they're
the
roommates.
Odd Couple. It's
so
Abbott
it's like,
and Costello.
Did you move my thing?
Classic,
did you take my thing? Yeah.
Classic. It's Bert Ernie. It's Abbott and Costello. It's Farley Spade. It's whatever your generation's thing is, Yeah. But Bert and Ernie is such a simplified, boiled down version that I find it really useful. And it's basically so Bert has 5 cookies, which I also love because Bert is such a stick in the mud, but he's still like my cookies.
Right. Yeah. And he collects bottle caps. He has passions. He feeds pigeons.
He's the best.
Yeah.
Gotta love Bert.
Cookies.
So, and then he lives with this twink.
Yeah.
This like,
chubby twink
this,
who's
like,
always in the bath.
just like making mischief.
Yeah.
It's great. Anyway, so Ernie eats one of the cookies. As if we didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah, we saw that.
And then Bert comes in, and they're just improvising basically based on like, we know what this is. It's very Larry David. It's we have a shape of this. And Bert's like, I can't wait to, literally says like, I can't wait to eat the 5 cookies that I left out for myself. And then he gets there and he's like, 1, 2, 3, 4. You get your little math lesson in there. And it's like, Ernie comes in like, what's up, Bert? What's up?
What's up? What could possibly
Yeah,
be up with your day?
You?
Yeah.
And Bert's like, there were 5 cookies on this plate, and now there's 4 cookies. Like, what do you have to say for yourself? And Ernie's like, huh? And he like looks around, and looks under the cupboard. And this is all men's arms improvising this body language. Don't get me started about the body language. Anyway, the puppeteering blows my mind more than anything else. But he's like, well, this is 4 cookies is a fair amount of it's a decent amount of cookies. And Bert goes, Ernie, I wanted 5 cookies. The last thing I want is 4 cookies.
The last thing I want.
There's so many things in between that, he can get set on fire. He doesn't care. He can get hit by a truck. The last thing he wants is 4. Like the 4 cookies is the crime.
Yep.
So there's just these 2 brilliant men standing under a stage watching themselves on a mirror. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it like that, anything you watch that is, again, Fozzie, Kermit, Piggy, Bert, Ernie, they're improvising down there.
Yeah.
And brilliantly and beautifully.
And often their scene partner is a 3-year-old who thinks that
Correct.
They're a real monster.
Yes.
And they get to play off of that scene partner.
And the best guests on the Muppet Show specifically are the ones that, most of them who are on the Muppet Show are this is not a problem for them, but they work with the Muppets as other actors.
Right.
There's no awareness that they don't look down and look at the, look at Frank and Jim, and they just are playing with them.
A great example is in Great Muppet Caper, watching Charles Grodin believably fall in love with Miss Piggy. That musical number, she's like Esther Williams in the water.
Miss Piggy.
Loneliness, Miss Piggy.
There's so much gold in there.
Yeah. So all of that, I brought up that as a way of saying, from a young age, the Kool-Aid you were drinking and the comedy you were obsessing over, a large part of it was that, which was equal parts super smart and super silly.
Totally.
But
I think really at its core, the first, there's another thing that I will force upon my students. The very, very, very first sketch on the Muppet Show was a sketch called Java, which was these 2 macaroni they look like fuzzy macaronis with eyeballs. And it's a nonverbal scene just to music where there's a big macaroni and then there's a kid macaroni and they're dancing, and the kid macaroni is trying to learn how to dance, and the bigger one is get the fuck out of here. And then the big macaroni, and then the little macaroni comes back on and starts to dance again, and the big one's get the hell out. So it's this relationship's very clear, and the dynamic is really clear, and the status is really clear, and then it heightens the space between them, the break heightens, the rest heightens, and then at the end, he comes on, and the little macaroni does this bum 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 bum, and then just extends one of its little macaroni feet and just shoots the other macaroni with a cannonball out of its foot, which was the other great thing about the Muppet Show that we can't really do anymore, was just it's very violent.
Yeah.
A lot of explosives.
Yeah.
And I show that because it's what we talk about with Peekaboo. Mm-hmm. It's just creating tension, releasing tension, heightening, creating tension, releasing tension, heightening whatever the thing is, and then breaking the pattern.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And everything else is just a dressed up version of that.
Yeah.
And if we can't get, like, you got to get back to that.
Yeah.
I don't care how much like brilliant joke telling and references and like snarky whatever the hell is going on in your scene. At its core, it is two macaronis dancing.
For part 2 of this episode, go to yesalso.supercast.com. If you like this podcast, you can support us and get a ton of bonus content over at yesalso.supercast.com. If you have a question about improv that you'd like us to answer on one of our future Q&A episodes, send it on over to yesalsopod@gmail.com. Remember to follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod and keep sharing us with your improv communities. We love the love. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.